Welcome to the Asset Mindset Podcast, where we don't wait for opportunities, we create them. And I'm your host, Daniel Fielding, former Green Beret, author of The Asset Mindset, motivational speaker, and life coach. But enough about me. Let's get today's special guest, someone who actually helped motivate me to do this Asset Mindset Podcast. My special guest, Darrin Johnson. Welcome to the show, Darrin.
Daniel, thanks. Thanks for the invite and honored to be on your podcast. I love what you're building and doing, and so honored to be here.
Well, thank you. I'm honored to have you. I love what you've built, and I've been watching from the sidelines and learning a lot, and kind of gave me some inspiration. So we know your podcast, you inspire people to dare to do things, and I'm daring myself to be out here and doing it, and it's been fantastic. I got a wonderful team. And why don't you introduce yourself to the Asset Mindset audience so they understand your background of, executive and sales, and then what you're doing now. Bring us up to speed.
Will do. Love to. Yeah. Again, honored to be a guest. I've been watching you in this podcast, and you've got some killer guests. So if I'm part of that mix, great to be here. So yeah. Hey, everybody. I'm Darrin Johnson, and I live in Idaho Falls, Idaho. It is God's country out here. We're 2 hours from the Tetons, 3 hours from Yellowstone. Not a lot of people, but a great, great place to live. And my background, or who am I? I mean, probably first, I'm a husband of 36 years. Michelle, very proud of that. Dad to 3 grown kids, proud of them. Professionally, I am bulk of my experience, I'm a corporate America guy. I've been in corporate America for over 30 years. I've been a vice president or senior vice president of sales or marketing for the past 21 years for some of the best private and publicly held companies in North America. And I'm proud of that. I mean, you can tell I kind of hang on that. I'm just really proud of that professional background. And I've worked really hard at that. And I've learned a lot through that. Through successes, but more than that, through a lot of missteps and failures, and there's learnings that come along with that. And I suspect I'll be sharing some of those here in a few minutes. I have my MBA from Washington University in St. Louis. I have my master's in communications from North Dakota State University in Fargo. And why I do what I do, I'm just passionate about helping others. I think in leadership, I think we have a responsibility to use our time and our talents to help others. And so that's what motivates me. That's why I love what I do professionally. That's why I started the I Dare You podcast. And nothing motivates me more than seeing people tap into who they are really meant to be and how they are becoming something better. No shame, no judgment. We're all on this journey together. So that's a little bit about me.
That's a fantastic introduction. I couldn't have done it any better, even though I have a big piece of paper here with all kinds of stuff on you.
I bet you do.
But seriously, in each episode, we dive into mindsets, habits, mission-driven thinking that turn everyday people into top performers. And I want to share with our audience how it's about not just motivation, it's about transformation. And you've gone from an incredible transformation. I've watched you and seen you for a few years now. You've gone from a corporate world and sales to now you're this motivational, inspirational person and sharing knowledge. What brought this transition on for you?
That's a really good question because as a vice president, senior vice president of sales or marketing, in our professional role, that's part of what we do. It's part of what I did is that I have a seat at the executive table, but also within the same hour, I need to pivot. And then I need to talk to thousands of people out in the field, salespeople, and to translate that corporate direction and strategy into something that salespeople can execute on, selling the vision, doing storytelling. And so I've got a lot of professional background at that. I've been very successful. I've built high-performing teams and hired a lot of great people, fired a lot of people. And really the point where I thought to myself, you know what, I can do more with this. I can do more with my talents is that I have a mentor. I mean, we all have mentors in our lives. And for me, his name is Bob Goff. He's a best-selling author, faith-based gentleman, friend of mine. And he and I were talking, and he finally asked me the question. He said, hey, have you ever thought about doing a podcast? And I said, no, I never have thought about it. But it's amazing how that one seed that is planted and someone who believes in you and can see something bigger than you can see. And I started to think about it more. And eventually, over about a 12-month period, where Bob finally said, okay, enough talking about it, start doing the podcast. And I dove in. And that one small step just transformed my life and helped me see the world completely differently, which allowed me to take my mission, which was very important to me, helping others, but helped me just explode that into a whole different way. And so that's part of how I started doing what I was doing and just expanding that.
That's great to be able to take that knowledge that you learned from sales. And I like how you talked about, you're motivating people to sell something or share a story. And you've taken that skill set and you're bringing on guests, authors, people in different careers and sharing their knowledge. So you are multiplying, you're a force multiplier. And I love that.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Daniel. Part of what someone was asking me recently, what's the theme? What's the common thing or the thread I see through all these high performers? And one of the things that is a common theme for everybody is that there's an element of faith that it's not a Christian based podcast, but it's amazing how when we're talking about why do you do what you do, and many of the guests then talk about how faith has made such a difference in their life and how because of their faith, they have confidence and courage to take the next step. And that's what really drives them and motivates them. And the other thing that I notice from these high performers, a common theme, is that they are so focused on other people. I mean, don't get me wrong, every one of us has our own ego and things that we're trying to do for ourselves. But what I've noticed, what differentiates the good from the great is the great ones, they are doing it for other people. And because of that, they are tapping into a whole different purpose and joy in their lives. I didn't see that coming for me. And Daniel, maybe you're seeing that in the work you do. You do a lot of great work with your book and your podcast, but that's one of the things that I'm leaving with, that whenever you're stuck, whenever you're in a bit of a funk, if you can then begin, remember, it's about someone else, everything just changes. It's like a drug. It's just amazing.
Oh, absolutely. You're spot on. And that's why I wanted you on here to share a lot of that. And recently I was on a different podcast and I was talking about being a boss or a leader. Boss, you just boss people around. You tell them what to do. A true leader lifts people up. They mentor them. They are an example. They want them to maybe reach levels that they haven't reached. That is a leader. That is a mentor. And if you have a boss that's just telling you what to do, it doesn't work. And you're absolutely spot on with the people that are doing the greatest and the biggest things. They are lifting others up because that's just such a positive energy. And then people want to be around them, want to work with them, are grateful, have gratitude. There's so many themes that come through with being a leader rather than a boss or being a mentor. So I want to ask, what are you've already mentioned one mentor,
Yeah.
but who is someone that you really idolize? And maybe idolize isn't the best word, but you respect or admire their work and try and bring that to the show or bring that out in your life.
Hmm. Current state, if I think about it right now, who do I admire? One of the things that when I just think about in the podcast space, there's a couple of podcasts that by the way, I've never been asked that question, but if I just think about it, who do I gravitate to? I've listened now to like 6 of your podcast episodes. I think you're doing incredible work, Daniel. Mel Robbins is someone that I'm intrigued by. And here's why I'm intrigued by what Mel Robbins does is that she speaks in very plain language about common things that people are going through. And that connects with me because I'm not interested in wonky theory. I'm just interested in someone who will just tell it to me straight in almost like they have their arm around me and saying, you know what, here's what you're continually doing here because I love you, I'm going to give you this feedback. I do think that Mel Robbins checks that box. I think Chris Williamson, I believe his name is, for Modern Wisdom, is also someone who does that. And I think both of those individuals, for me anyway, they do not get overly political or division. Part of what I personally believe is that we got enough division in this world, and if we can look for the things that unite us, I think we're going to be much, much, much better off. And so those are the types of podcasts and the attitude and the spirit that I really gravitate to. And it's those types of leaders that also I connect with, and the type of people that I look to hire on my team as well. If someone just has that magnetic type thing, and I don't know if you can coach it or not. I think you have it or you don't. But one of the things that you can do as a shortcut to make sure you have it is practicing human relations skills on listening to people, asking great questions, being curious about them, focusing on them. And if you can have that type of an attitude, whether you have a massive podcast or you're a leader of thousands of people or a leader of one, when you can focus on those types of people, I love those types of people. That's the kind of individuals and content that I gravitate to.
Well, you are doing an amazing job with that. And that was a great answer. I love Mel too. She does a fantastic job. I'm very much in the military world, like keep it simple, stupid, or keep it stupid, simple. Either way you want to use KISS. Like that's how I am. That's how I tried to write my book, to keep it simple so other people could just, okay, this is what I need to do. This is how I need to look at things. So you're spot on there, because there are some people that I think try too hard. My son calls them tryhards. Like, look how wonderful I am, and look what I've done, and look what I've built, and you need to follow me.
Yeah,
And those people only, I think, go so far. Whereas
right.
someone that is lifting others up, connecting, being authentic. I think speaking the truth and authentic is so powerful. And I think that's what you've been doing. That's what made me really relate to you, and I follow you and your podcast. And stop right here, pause, because you need to follow Darrin and the I Dare You podcast, link in the description, because he has
I
great
appreciate that.
guests and is doing incredible things. You will learn so many different types of things about leadership, about mindset, about personal growth, which is everything we do here on the Asset Mindset. He's right there. He's an Asset Mindset teammate for sure.
I want to pick up on that because thank you, by the way. I appreciate that. And I think your son is right. The way that I think he's on it. One of the ways I look at it is there's two types of people, those who are concerned with looking good and others who are concerned with being good or doing good. I think if you can be that latter, that's great. You can be concerned with looking good and you can get pretty far in life. We all know that. We all know them. But it's pretty empty, pretty hollow. When you can focus on trying to be good and do good, that's when you tap into your purpose in ways that are, just totally, totally different. And let's have an agreement here too, Daniel, that whoever gets on the Mel Robbins show first as a guest, we'll bring the other one along. Okay. But,
Sounds fantastic to me. I will make that deal and put it in writing. I'll shoot you an email.
but the other thing I just want to talk to you, brought it up. When I think about what makes me, what makes you as far as leadership. So I've got, I just talked about, I got a lot of experience in corporate America and a lot of battle scars that go along with that. Man, oh man. And, but that's what I try to lean into. That's what I try to really focus on in helping others, because I know there's one thing I know for sure is that as a vice president of sales and marketing for 21 years, there's not many people in the world that can say that. Okay, so I've got that. I can own that market. For you, I'm never going to be a Green Beret. I'm never going to be Special Forces. Not, never. And so what I love of what you're doing is that you're also recognizing where your, I guess, dominant competency is, and you're leaning into that. You're not trying to be me. I'm not trying to be you. We don't have to be. We all have our own skill set and background. And the trick, I think, Daniel, is to find that, own that, and then bring that out in the world.
Absolutely. The truth is the truth. And that's where I use the saying all the time. To be in special forces, you have to have the asset mindset. But you do not have to be in special forces to have the asset mindset.
There it is.
So that right there is so powerful. And I try and convey to people all the time because I'm sure you've seen it as vice president, or you go up and speak, or you have your podcast now and you talk to people, or a listener or someone approaches you. You're like, wow, I could never do that or whatnot. Or like you just said, oh, I could never be a Green Beret. That's fine. You don't have to be me. They don't have to be you. They can be themselves, but understand that they have the power to accomplish amazing things if they build their mind right and they surround themselves with good people.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, I know that's part of what I've heard you talk about and write about is that, you are your own asset. And when you surround yourself with good people and when you're an asset to others, I mean, that's a perfect summation of where you can really tap into something special. Yeah, and I think if you have merch that has that quote on there, if you don't have it yet, I need to buy that. All right, you don't have to be in special forces to have asset minds. I love it.
Well, I do have some merch. I'm glad you brought that up. If you go to the website, you can find some merch, but I think I might have to make a new edition. I'm going to write that down right now.
Perfect.
Thank you, Darrin.
I'm a large and I prefer a sweatshirt. Okay.
Okay, with the sweatshirt.
No, no, yeah, I'll take the hood. I'll take the hood.
You take the awesome. Wonderful. All right. So, boy, where do we go from here? I love conversing with you because we get it. And I think people radiate energy and people call it vibing nowadays. That's kind of like the hot word, like, hey man, we're vibing. But we're on a similar trajectory, similar energy, and we really are genuine in wanting to help other people grow. So, all right, you have the podcast, you're sharing all kinds of knowledge. What has been, you feel, the greatest thing you've been able to share on the podcast that you had a guest? You can name the guest or not name the guest, I don't care. But what was that thing when you did that episode? You're like, wow, I am loving bringing this to my listener.
hmm Yeah, really good question because is relatively recently when on the podcast, what I do is but every couple of months, I offer these free PDFs that are custom designed by a designer out in the UK. Her name is Dani Savaker. She's awesome. And she's one of the world's best at these graphic designs. What she does is we collaborate on these on best-selling books, and then we develop these worksheets that you can use as a book study or with a team meeting and things. And we brainstormed and said, okay, what's the very first book? It's got to be a book that people would recognize and most people have read. And we landed on Atomic Habits. And
Mm.
she's already done some work on Atomic Habits and a great visual synopsis of it. And so I started really getting into Atomic Habits in a way that I never really had before. I don't know, Daniel, have you read Atomic Habits
Yes.
before?
What an amazing book. Yes. Inspirational.
Yeah, but one of the things here's a cool thing about a great book. Every time you read it, something else hits you. For example, whenever I read How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie, every time I read that, something else hits me depending on the season of life that I'm in. But in this example, in Atomic Habits, there's this discussion about how your future self and the habits and the routines that help you become your future self. And that really connected with me and with the audience. In particular, the whole discussion about what is your identity. And so, for example, let's say if I wanted to become a marathon runner, all right? Well, I can take on the identity of a marathon runner right now. What do marathon runners do? Well, I know what they do. They get up in the morning and they run 10 miles per day. I know what marathon runners do. They're not having pizza and beer at 8:30 at night. Well, some are. But the point is, I have the power right now to change my identity to whatever my future self is, the individual that I want to be 10 years from now. I have that person in mind. I can see him. I know what he looks like. I know the friends he's hanging with. I know his mindset. I know his mental state. I can see him. And what would that version of me expect of me today on the habits and the routines that would help me become that person? Now, that person is not perfection. He's human. But I do know that whole discussion about your identity and your future self and how that ties into atomic habits. For me, that was a real breakthrough moment personally for me, but also for my listeners as well, because when they were going through their year end of 2025 type goal setting and celebrating what was accomplished and where do they want to take things in 2026, it just elevated the discussion more for my listeners saying, okay, yeah, who do I want to become? Who is my future self? And then what would that person expect of me today and tomorrow and the next day? Because just looking at it through a different lens. And that is one of the biggest breakthroughs that I've seen for my listeners here recently and for me.
That's a great one, and it's so true. It's absolutely true. And to be able to do that, I talk about backwards planning a lot, and that's kind
There
of
you go.
what you're doing. You're projecting out like, "Hey, here's my end state.
Yeah.
Now I gotta go from that end state, that person I wanna be, and I gotta do the backwards planning to, all right, if I'm gonna arrive at here." But I do like how you can take the identity on now, because I
Yes.
think that adds another level to backwards planning. Because sometimes I think with backwards planning, you're just thinking, "Ooh, step, next
Yeah.
step." Not like, "Hey, no, I'm going to be that identity right now." So that I think, thank you for sharing that. That was something that I think people are going to walk away with. Also, here on the asset mindset, that, hey, that's powerful.
Yeah, it's
So,
amazing. It just really does change. I mean, I said it before, but it is like a drug. It's amazing how your mindset shifts immediately just from that one that one step. And it also fits into the behavior like in corporate America. I'll show my age here, Daniel, but in corporate America, whenever I talk to young individuals in their career and they say they want to, advance in their career, one of the things I coach them on are just the things that they may not think about, like um, how you're dressed. The If you want to become a director of whatever the department is, my question to them is, how would the director of that department dress? What time would they arrive in the morning? What time would they leave? How do they conduct themselves in meetings? I mean, and so those things again are not meant to shame people, but when you think of it that way, all of a sudden it does put a little more of a focus on your daily actions and behaviors that everything, these small steps compound into much bigger transformations. It doesn't happen overnight, but it happens over, decades.
no, that's great advice. And what a great coach and mentor you are. I use something similar that I forget where I heard it, but it was like, imagine you're 80 or 90 years old. And I use this for parenting, for because
Yeah.
I have young daughters still. They're 7 and 9, and an 18-year-old, which that's another
Yeah.
story, another dynamic. So I'm
It's a whole nother
experiencing,
episode.
yeah. I wear many hats here. I'm a
Yes,
farmer,
you
I'm a podcaster, I'm an author, and but anyway, getting to the story that I'd like to share is, imagine you're 80, 90 years old by yourself looking back, and what would you do to have that time with your child again, even though there's toys on the floor, they made a mess, finger paints in the carpet. Would you really be mad at that? Or at 80, at 90 years old, what would you give to have another day of that joy? So to tell yourself when you're getting stressed out or you're frustrated about the current circumstances, understand what's really important,
Yeah.
understand what you love, understand what you care about, because just reframing that and looking back, because it's like, yeah, I'm not going to care about, ooh, there was crayons written on the wall. All right, don't do that. You teach the lesson, but don't
Right.
get so upset. Don't let that ruin your day, because you're going to miss the moment.
So true. I saw a stat recently that I can't stop thinking about, and I think I've got this percentage right. 92% of the time that you will spend with your child in their lifetime happens between birth and 12 years old. So just think of that for a moment. It's putting an exclamation point on what you're saying. They say you have until they're 18, and you know this too. That's not right. I mean,
Mm-mm.
as soon as they start driving and getting jobs, and it's a lot shorter window than you realize. And yeah, I mean, and so it's one of those situations where if you look back on your life, what do you value? Quick story here. I've said this to my wife Michelle. when the kids were young, again, my kids are now 34, 32, and 29. Okay. But when the kids were young, all in that time, Daniel, I would come home from work and the entryway would just be packed with soccer balls and soccer cleats and shoes of all different types. And it was always tough for me to open the door. It's kind of like, okay. And I remember being frustrated with that. It's like, okay, everybody, could we just pick up our stuff? Right. And it's frustrating. And now when I come home and I love my life, but I open the door and the door opens smoothly. There's no friction. There's no one blocking the door. I would give my left arm to have one more day where I tried to open the door and there were cleats everywhere. And it just happens so quick. So I think you're wise to look at those years that way and to, for every parent or every dad who's listening, yeah, those years go by quick. So it's cliche, but you gotta internalize it. Don't miss the moments. Make sure that your calendar is filled with the moments that matter so that, Daniel, when you're 80, you can look back and you say, yeah, it wasn't about the stuff. It was about the experiences that I did with my kids. That's what they're going to remember. And that's what you're going to remember.
Absolutely. And I just read a thing on vacations, and like this past Christmas, I was thinking about things and ideas for the family. And it was a survey of like children or older children, teenagers or whatever. Hey, what do you remember that you got for Christmas when you were 10? And they're like, oh, where'd we go on vacation when you were 10? Oh, we went to Florida. Oh,
Yeah.
we went to the Outer Banks, or oh, we went to Hawaii, or we went to whatever park. They remember the events. Those are the important things. Toys, they're a fad. They come and go. They like this, they like that. But when you can build memories, that really gives them a foundation of love and things that they can look back on. And yes, as we get older and 80 or 90, we can look back too and be like, you know what? I had quality time. And you can
Yeah.
relive those moments in your memories without regret.
So true. Quick story. When the kids were young, of course, I had to do the Mecca to Disney World. And gosh, we were up in Wisconsin at the time. So we did the road trip, put everyone in the Honda Odyssey. And I didn't have the money, Daniel. I didn't have the money, but I did it anyway. Put it in the credit card, which I do not recommend. Okay. But anyway, did the whole Disney thing, hell on earth. I mean, I did I did not like Disney. I'm probably the only guy I get it. I'm just not a Disney guy. But we did the Disney World thing 3 days, drove back, and that was dad of the year, okay? And so I asked the kids, I said, "Hey, everybody, what was your favorite part of going to Disney World?" Right? Because I really wanted that affirmation. And my daughter said, "My favorite part was swimming." I said, "Swimming? We didn't swim at Disney World." Well, Daniel, we were in the middle of Tennessee, staying at a Hampton Inn, and we were swimming in the pool there. And that was the biggest memory from that whole Disney World trip. It wasn't Disney at all. It was just these random moments that you can't plan. And so I think you're absolutely onto it. And so, yeah, I'm saying before you go to Disney, think twice. Just go to a Hampton Inn and go swimming.
Yeah, for young kids, a pool, if you don't have one, that's amazing. Like they're like, "Oh my God, we're in a hotel." Or have you ever seen them jumping from one hotel bed to the other bed because you have the
Yeah,
two queens and they're like,
you got it.
"Yay!"
I think
That
you and I we grew up in the same household, I think.
yeah, just making memories, and we get to do that now. And what a privilege and what an honor. That's something that we should wear as a badge of honor, not something that stresses us out. Like you talked about, like when you come through the door and things are in the way, or there's dishes in the sink, or whatever. Don't let that stress you out. Please don't. Focus on the important things. I'm not saying let your home, go to hell in a handbasket and messes everywhere, but at the same time, don't over focus on the negative. Fix it, see something wrong. One of the things I do, I'll share a little story here because my young girls are very sensitive. I tried to raise them a little bit in the beginning, like my son, and realized that doesn't work.
Yeah.
Different emotional creatures. And, there was something spilt or whatever. And I was like, oh man, you spilt the milk on the table. And it was like this big deal. And I'm like, all right. She started crying. And I'm like, listen, it's an accident. It's no big deal. When we have accidents, what do? We clean it up.
There you
That's
go.
what we do, and gave the job on what. So now accidents aren't the drama anymore. It's just, oh, something spilled. We clean it up. That's what we do in accidents. And I think if people can take that mentality into their life when something goes wrong, hey, it's just a spill, clean it up. And then we go back to what we were doing.
I think that's great. We both read a lot of books. Have you ever read 1 Minute Manager before?
No, I haven't. I'll have to write that
So
down.
1 Minute Manager is a really quick read, but it is like in corporate America, it's like the Bible. And the example you gave is a classic example of the 1 Minute Manager. It's this. It's instead of waiting for the annual performance review where you talk to somebody about where they can improve, you just look for the moments, immediate feedback. So that's one example. Or you're coming out of a meeting and say, "Hey, Daniel, you got a second? Daniel, when you said this in the meeting, well done. As soon as you gave that data point, they gave you such credibility. Keep doing that." Or vice versa. "Hey, Daniel, when you said this in the meeting, how do you think that went?" "Well, let me share with you how it was perceived in the room." And so next time, be aware of that. It's something, if you change the following, you're going to have so much more credibility. I mean, it's just a constant type reframe that'll help your team become their very best, but also helps you just kind of reframe it, like you just gave.
Yeah, reframing is so important. And one of the things I think you're really good at, and you teach quite a bit, which I love because your communications background, but how to communicate effectively. Because how you say things is so important. Can you share some of your knowledge and experiences on communication and tips and tricks?
Sure, love to. And I think it is so important, and people miss it all the time. Let me start first with weasel words. I call them weasel words because we all use them. I used them. I just did. I used okay? But the weasel words are things like maybe, just, perhaps. And the way it comes out is, instead of saying, "Oh, here's another one," feel. Um, and here's how it comes out in real life. Instead of saying, "I believe that we should do this, and here's why." Okay, that was a pretty efficient use of words. The other way that people will use that is this. You know, Maybe we should look at something a little differently. And I wonder if perhaps the answer might be something like, "Okay, what am I trying to say here, Daniel?" And instead of just saying exactly what you mean, and you don't feel, you believe. And I've noticed also that type of language change or language difference, how I'm generalizing here. I don't mean to get anyone in trouble. But I've also noticed that men in corporate setting, they can get away with more of those weasel words than women can. And for women, you especially need to be aware of the language that you are using. I'm not saying that it's fair. I'm just saying I've observed it. So for all the women who are listening, when you go into the next meeting, I want you to really do a self-assessment on the language you're using. And is that helping you become more powerful, more credible, or is it taking your power away? Don't ever give your power away. And I think we leak power a lot when we are talking to people using weasel words. And so just be aware of that. It happens just routinely when you don't mean it to. So if you have an idea, just articulate it and practice it before you go into that meeting, and you know your position. So it might sound like, I'm seeing that differently than you. I think the answer is this, and here's why I believe that. Okay, that was a very efficient use of language. But again, the way that most people will do it, and even myself when I'm not conscious about it, my the way I would say that is, "Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if we should try that or not. There's a lot of things. What if we were to do?" There's an immediate change, not only in the way that I'm carrying myself and my confidence, but the way people are perceiving me. They know that I don't believe what I'm saying. I haven't thought it through very much. And so I do think that every time we are in a corporate environment, it's just that the message I have for you, Daniel, and for everyone listening is being really intentional about the language that you are using so that you're not giving away your power. And that would be one of the biggest takeaways. So what do you think of that? Does that connect with you, Daniel?
So the weasel words,
Yeah.
I think that is very powerful. And I believe you're onto something. I believe that the way people speak and project, their language, doesn't always, message sent isn't always message received. That is a big issue that I think people have. So we have to choose our words wisely,
Yes.
because when we do use our words incorrectly, it's very detrimental to what we're trying to accomplish, how we are perceived. Super important. And how we say it is also very important. Are you looking somebody in the eyes? I see this a lot with different people when I'm talking. It's a lot of people won't look you in the eyes very long. They will be like, "Oh yeah," and then they kind of look away. And whoever you're talking to, engage. Engagement's so important. It's so important.
You
That's a
know,
great habit to have.
yeah, I think you called it. It's a habit to have and it's something to practice and to be intentional about it. I was just at work today and I had a group of employees kind of walk by me. They're relatively new. And I was just try to just, I like just seeing what they will do. So I was walking by and I looked all three in the eye and said, "Hey guys, how you doing?" You know, and, it was as if I was, from Mars. They 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 were not used to making eye contact, they were just kinda looking down, and so you can also model that, especially as you get older. Yeah, you don't have to be older, but in your career, also look for ways you can mentor, model that type of great communication. Here's another thing, you talked about language. So, yes, self-assess your language, but one of the ways that you can have a powerful communication style is to talk less and to ask great questions. And what I've seen time and again in my career for great leaders, but also in great salespeople, it's not the ones who are good talkers. It's the ones who ask great questions and then they listen. And so listening is and asking questions, you cannot practice that enough. So here's just a couple of things you can try here today. When you are in a discussion with someone and they are going off on an idea that they have, instead of the tendency to jump in and to tell them what you think, just pause and say, "That's interesting. Tell me more about why that's important to you." Some variation of that. "I want to learn more about that. I hadn't thought of it that way. Tell me more about what you're seeing there." And immediately, the person asking the question has the power. Okay. And you are learning and they feel that you genuinely want to learn and they like you more because of that. By the way, I'm not saying manipulate. That's not it. I'm saying you genuinely want to learn more about what is it like being a Green Beret. I can't imagine. But what is a day in the life like? And I'm going to ask you some follow-ups because I am stone cold serious about I want to learn more about that. And so I just have to tell you that in this world, practicing those human relation skills, like yes, power language, but also asking great questions and then listening, not just to what they say, but what they are not saying. That is probably the greatest cheat code that you can have in life, especially in the age of artificial intelligence. Those who are really good at dealing with people, you are going to stand out like a neon sign in the dark because anyone can create a prompt and put it into Chat GPT. Not a lot of people can have a can have a firm handshake, look someone in the eye, and have a conversation. So there you go. So I feel like I should be on a Progressive commercial, and I'm showing my age here, but I believe that in my core.
No, you're right on and spot on. I love it, and I'm grateful for you to share so much. And we always say in the military, like, you have one mouth and two ears. You should be doing twice as much listening compared to talking.
That's
That
right.
is something that is so true. And a smart person knows they don't know everything. So listen and learn. Learn to
Yes.
others. We get so caught up. I think you're spot on with interrupting. Someone starts saying something like, "Hey, did you see the football game the other day?" And like, "Oh yeah, when the guy caught the touchdown and this and that," or and it's like you didn't even hear the rest of the question. You're so busy trying to, I don't know, self-esteem, trying to show your self-worth or whatever it is when we innately have this urge like, "Oh, I want to show you what I know too." That can be very detrimental sometimes. because the other
Right.
person's now is like, well, I wasn't fully going to say that. I was going to say something else, but now you took over the conversation. They don't feel heard. And you didn't learn really what the conversation was about. So stop, listen. It's a powerful communication tool and very effective.
No,
But
that's
go
oh,
ahead.
go. Okay, so let me pick up on that because that's an aha for me, and here's what, if everyone could just replay what Daniel was saying there, and this is an example of how if we can just practice more of this. So here's what's on my mind. Why is Daniel so excited about that football game? I mean, I was excited about it. I was watching it last night. Indiana won the national championship. But yeah, I thought it was pretty cool. But Daniel, holy smokes, he is really enthused about that. So one of the things that was on my mind is this, and here's what I would ask you. So yeah, the game was amazing, but man, you are really excited about that. What do you have a connection to Indiana University? And your answer, whatever your answer is, I don't know what it might be, but even if it's something like, yeah, I went to a Big Ten school. Okay, perfect. You know what? So did I. And so where'd you go? And so all of a sudden we have this connection. And unless you're listening and being curious and asking a follow-up question, you never advance the relationship to a point where you and I are developing trust. And once you get that connection, I mean, I'll take a bullet for you, you'll take a bullet for me. And so that's where it gets down to. It's not just these big events, but just random interactions with people. You can listen and just ask some legitimate, curious questions. I mean, it's just a game changer.
Absolutely. And hey, if you were willing to take a bullet for me, you might have been able to be a Green Beret because you definitely have the asset mindset.
Well, yeah, you'll probably see me run
Just
the other
different
way
time
when the bullet
frame.
goes.
Hey.
I'm all talk. I'm all talk.
Yeah, yeah. No, no, you're a doer. You're not all talk. I know that. I see what you're doing. Speaking of what you're doing, let's get into some habits. So, as we learn and get wiser in life, what are some of your like top 3 habits that you've picked up or that you would share with the audience like, "Hey, these are great habits to have."
Yeah, and I've learned this over time that it's not, and by the way, I don't think there's a prescription for, you're not gonna hear me say cold plunge at 4:30 in the morning. I mean, if that's what you wanna do, that's certainly fine. I think the point is, though, that you do have the habits that work for you, that make the biggest difference in your life, that help you become the best version of you, and so every one of us has something different. For me, I've noticed that there's a couple habits that are musts for me. Number one is exercise. I realize that if I don't get exercise, I don't. It's not that I get. I've never suffered with depression or anxiety, and I know many people do. But I will say when I do not exercise, Daniel, having that asset mindset is really tough for me. I find that when I am exercising, I am much clearer. I'm more focused. I'm more positive. I exercise more for the mental benefit than I do the physical benefit. And if I go 2 or 3 days where I'm not moving my body, doesn't have to be CrossFit, it could be walking. I really recognize that, and it impacts me in a physical and a mental way. So exercise, number 1. Secondly, and I realized this too late in my life, it's sleep. Um, when I was younger and the kids were younger, it was really difficult to get a lot of good sleep. And for me, having now as I'm getting older, the habit of having a good night's sleep has been also a game changer for me. And that's more difficult to do because in order for me to have a great night's sleep, I need to eat well. I need to avoid alcohol. I need to avoid doom scrolling at night for hours. I also need to go to bed earlier so that I can then get up in the morning and exercise. And so each habit leads to the other. But I would say those two things are the habits that for me are non negotiable. Um, and there's a lot of other ones that feed into that, but those two things really, really make a difference for me.
Oh, those are good. Those are powerful. Yeah, I think a lot of people overlook sleep. I've had sleep issues for a little bit for
Have you?
years now, but I'm having new ones as aging and aches
Yeah.
and pains. I have to reposition because I wake up from pain
Do you?
and that interrupts my sleep. Yeah, shoulder or back or different things and I'm like, man, this isn't good. And this goes back to exercise, being physically fit, the more I exercise or I work on my core will not hurt when I'm sleeping. It's
Yeah.
very simple, but my shoulders right now, because I sleep on my sides a lot, that's something that bothers me and interrupts my sleep. But we all need to work on what we need to work on. The struggle is real for everybody. And that's one of the
Yeah.
things too. People look at us as like, oh, you guys have great mindsets. You got it all figured out. No, the struggle is real for us too. We still wake up tired. We have days where we have a headache or we don't feel good or we have to deal with things and you got to push through. So while we're on that topic, Darren, what do you do to push through the bad days or the tough moments or the struggle?
Another really, really good question. I just yesterday, actually, I would consider that I had a bad day. I was at the office and a series of things that happened not only during the day but also over the weekend where I went into the workplace and I just it was not a good day. And for me, the only thing that not the only thing, but what works for me in that situation is to focus in on just doing the work. I find that the more that I just sit back and just think about it and overthink, that to me it's a spiral, and I spiral like that. And so what that looked like for me was I had a big project that I knew I needed to get done, and so I set a timer for 30 minutes and I shut the door, shut the blinds so I had no interruptions. And I dove into a project that really mattered to me on a really deeply personal level. And after those 30 minutes, I tell you, my brain got in a whole different state because I was pushing away the things that were in my mind that were negative and sucking me down. But I focused in on what really gave me a lot of energy. And so on the days when I do feel in a bit of a funk, yeah, for me it goes right back to staying in action. The other thing that I always try to do routinely is schedule a quarterly reset. But every 90 days, in fact, if I go to my calendar right now, every 90 days that I've got time blocked off, where I will revisit why I'm doing what I'm doing, my priorities, where's my time going. And because there's so many distractions, it's difficult to stay on track. And that helps me. And the final thing I'll tell you that I started doing 15 years ago, it's just been a game changer. Friday afternoons for me are sacred. And Friday afternoons, if you look at my calendar, it's blocked time. It's called green wood. That's what my
Hmm.
calendar shows. And why would it be called green wood? Well, because if you know anything about campfires, if you put green wood on a campfire, how good is a campfire? It
Not very
just
good. It won't burn.
no,
Yep.
it just hisses, it doesn't burn, it smokes, it's just not good. So I take those 4 hours of green wood time, and that's when I focus in on the things that I need to do personally and professionally. It's recapping the week before, it's planning the week ahead, it's saying no to the meetings I need to say no to, it's saying yes to the things that move me closer to the goals that are most important to me. And I find that that one step that I go into the weekend, I'm clear mentally. I know what's coming the next week because if you've ever dealt with those Sunday scaries, which you're going into work on Monday, part of that is driven by we don't know what's coming during the week. So that really helps me also going to the weekend knowing where I've been, but also more importantly, where I'm going. That helps me have fewer bad days because I know, not all the time, but I have a greater chance in knowing that my time is being spent in the areas that matter most to me. And the last thing, I'll go to you here. Whenever I try to diagnose why am I kind of in a funk right now, a lot of it does come down to the fact that my time is not being spent where it's bringing me a lot of joy and purpose. I'm wasting my time, or someone else is wasting my time. And so when I can align my values, which for me, time's important, with what matters most, I tend to have a lot of good days in a row.
Very, very well said. And I like the just start because people, they start to go in that downward spiral of thinking and like, oh, I got so much work or this or that. And then now it starts spinning. The imagination starts going. Things are getting magnified, the negative stuff. Oh, it's due at this time. Don't worry about any of that stuff. Put it aside and just start. or go for a walk or whatever it is you're trying to do, even if it's, exercise and you really want to go to the gym and do all these crazy things, but you know what? You're just going to go there. You don't have the time. Do 10 minutes on the treadmill or whatever it is, 10 minutes of stretching, do a couple, do one set all the way through, but just start and do something. And that's a game changer. I find that with myself. I find that with lots of guests say the same thing. Just start moving because motion, it really is special. I mean, you can get into physics of it. Object in motion tends to stay in motion. Object at
Yes.
rest wants to tend to stay at rest, all that. But seriously, there's something mental and physical to motion and moving. So if you're struggling or you're having a tough moment, just do it. Start moving, and it's a game changer.
I think you're all over it, and also, yeah, I mean, even if you are struggling at first, but if they take your advice, the first set might be a little more challenging, but I guarantee you, the second set and the third set, they're going to happen. You're going to feel good. And it just feeds on itself. So I think you're all over. I think that's great advice.
Yeah, and I don't know anybody that's ever gone to the gym or gone to exercise that regrets it afterwards. They might
No.
be sore, they might be tired, but I've never met anybody mentally that's like, "Oh, I wish I didn't do that." They're proud of what they did. They feel their body changing. There's so much positivity to it. So just get out there and do it. I hate to be cliche like Nike, just
Yeah.
do it, but it's the truth and it works.
I was talking to a podcast guest. This is a long time ago now. Alyssa Ages is her name. She's a women power lifter, female. If she were here, she would say exactly the same thing. When she lifts weights, part of the reason why she lifts is she gets this confidence. I mean, if I can lift this off the rack, I can do anything. It's this almost this I'm invincible type feeling where life can be so distracting, but also so soft. I mean, there's never been a better time to be alive right now than where we are. And many of us, the most strenuous we get is we check email. Okay. And so you have got to remind yourself that you can do hard things and you can lift heavy things. And I think there's something really, some with evolution or very primitive that when you proved yourself you can do that, everything else during the day, yeah, bring it. Bring it.
Absolutely. Well, we're getting closer to the hour, but there's one more thing that I want to go back to that you brought up that I think is so important. And I think everybody needs to do more of it. So I want to key into structure. You talked about your calendar and these dates and that dates and building. I think a lot of people struggle with structure. Give us the Darrin Johnson quick class on structure and how it can help.
Yes, yes. I love structure. I always say that whenever you're wondering, why does someone do that? A performance issue, or why did it happen? I always say it's either the people or the process. If it's the people, okay, let's look at coaching for performance, but more often than not, it's the process. It's the structure that didn't allow for that to happen. I can only imagine in the military world what you have examples like that. But for you personally, the structure that we have in our life sets you up to succeed. And a couple of structure ideas has to do with, you called it, it's the calendar. So right now, if I were to reach, through through your iPhone, grab it and look at your calendar or your whatever calendar you use, what would I see on your calendar? And if there's nothing on your calendar, then I would put to you with respect, that someone else is controlling your time. Someone else is controlling your life. If you do not have the things that are most important to you on your calendar, you're relying on someone else to live your life. And guess what they have planned for you? Not very much. They do not have very much planned for you. And so it's the things that are most important to you, what you value. Are they on your calendar during the day? When are you going to exercise? When are you going to be connecting with family and friends? All these things can be on your calendar. And then what that means, Daniel, is you now have that appointment with yourself, so that when someone says, "Hey, can you join us for the meeting at 4:30 on Friday afternoon?" You look at your calendar and it says yoga. Your answer, unless it's your boss, your answer can be, "You know what? I have an appointment. I'm sorry I can't make it." However, Monday at 9 o'clock works. How would that work for you? And so having that structure on your calendar is a game changer. I already told you every Friday afternoon should be blocked off. It's a no meeting Friday afternoon from 1 till 4. Block that off every week. That is your time to recap where you've been and also where you're going for the next week. And during the days, make sure that everything that is important to you is on your calendar. What gets scheduled gets done. And for most of us, we go through life without anything on our calendar, and we allow for life to force us to react. But when we can flip the script, when we can take control of our days, that's when our life changes. And so do not give your days to someone else. Control it. You have more power than you realize when you populate your calendar with everything that's important to you in your life today, but also as far out as you can see, that vacation you have planned, the kids' graduation, the trip to the Hampton Inn in Tennessee, all that's got to be on the calendar, because if you don't, someone else will take that time, and that's not your life. You're living someone else's life. So that those would be some simple things you could try.
Absolutely. I love it. And the structure gives you control. It really does. You know,
Does.
it's very empowering. I think a lot of people get overwhelmed with like, oh, I got to schedule all this stuff and oh, it's something else I need to do, but it actually empowers you. It gives you control and it gives you so much foresight and planning, and it's powerful. You are going to
You
be
know,
able to control your life more by just having a plan.
I wish I agree with you. Who was it? Was it Dean Smith, who I was the coach for North Carolina, and he, of course, coached Michael Jordan. I think it was Dean Smith who, or was it Phil Jackson? One of the two. But they talked about how these ultra competitive performers, high performers, they love structure. They need it. It's like having a stallion, right? You better have that thing in a fence. You better control it. And when you give a high performer the structure or where they can play, holy cow, do they play? But when you give a high performer no boundary and no structure, and for you, giving yourself that structure, you're just, you're not going to tap into your full strength. And so I think you're on it. The structure is where it's at.
Yeah, very important. And discipline to go with the structure to hold yourself accountable. Discipline is the glue that holds all that structure together because we can put whatever we want in the calendar. And then all of a sudden, oh, I'm supposed to go to the gym now. Well, I'm a little tired, or oh,
You
I
got it.
stayed up late and watched a movie, so I'm going to catch up on my sleep now. No, if you're having the structure, you need the discipline to go with it.
Amen.
And man, this has been an incredible experience. Every time I talk to you, Darrin, or listen to your podcast, I'm always more fired up. I definitely, catch the energy, and I think we resonate. And I am proud to have you on the show. I'm proud to work with you and do things. And I just I want to encourage you more and more to keep doing what you're doing because you're crushing it. I love your
Thank you,
guests.
my friend.
Everybody out there, definitely don't forget to subscribe to the I Dare You podcast. Follow Darrin, what he's doing. He's doing amazing things. If you like my guests, you're going to love his guests because he's got quite the array of guests, authors, and people that have so much wisdom and knowledge. And I'm grateful for you to be here and share your knowledge. Any last thoughts for the audience?
Boy, first off, it's been wonderful, my friend, to be here. And congratulations what you're building. And it's very apparent, and you're making a difference in the world. I would just add this to everyone as you're thinking about where you want to take things in your life. We talked about it. Is get really clear what Daniel brought up about that 80-year-old you, that future self that you want to be. And remember, you have more power than you realize. Start taking the actions today, those habits and routines that person would expect of you. That person might be your ultimate accountability partner in life. That person, you can talk to that person often, and that person can cheer you on in a supportive, encouraging way, not in a shame way, but tap into that 80-year-old future self you and start doing things today that person would want you to do. So, Daniel, I would just leave with that. And again, it's really been an honor being part of this podcast.
Well, thank you for being here. Audience, please do some positive things and like and subscribe and follow us and absolutely share this with people that you know could learn and need to hear what we're saying, because more than anything, people need to understand you and they own their power. And don't ever forget to take ownership of your life. Thank you for being here. And yes, I'm going to say it one more time: own your power.